It all began with a fairy tale. A princess born into one of Europe's most revered royal houses, surrounded by opulence, honor, and high expectation. Princess Cristina of Spain once embodied the perfect picture of loyalty, duty, and grace, royal blood running through her veins as the daughter of King Juan Carlos I and Queen Sofia. Her life seemed untouchable. Her smile, radiant at every public appearance, became a symbol of royal elegance and charm. She was never destined for the throne, but she held the crown's dignity close to her heart. Yet, no one, neither the public, nor the press, nor even Cristina herself, could have foreseen the unimaginable fall from grace that would cast a long shadow over her once spotless name. The tragic tale of Princess Cristina is not just one of personal pain. It is a case study in scandal, betrayal, and the brutal consequences of blind loyalty. It is a reminder that royalty is no shield from disgrace, and that sometimes, the fairy tale ends not with a royal wedding, but with a courtroom verdict and an entire nation turning its back. Born on June 13, 1965, Cristina Federica Victoria Antonia de la Santísima Trinidad de Borbón y de Gracia was the second child and younger daughter of King Juan Carlos and Queen Sofia. Raised within the rigid and gilded boundaries of the Spanish monarchy, Cristina was well educated, poised, and deeply involved in royal duties from a young age. Unlike her more traditionally groomed siblings, she carved her own path, studying political science, earning a master's degree in international relations, and becoming fluent in several languages. She was considered modern, independent, and intellectually accomplished. In 1997, Spain watched with joy as Princess Cristina married Iñaki Urdangarin, a tall, handsome Olympic handball player who had captivated her heart. Their wedding was a national celebration. Royal watchers adored their love story. A sportsman marrying a princess, it had all the markings of a contemporary romantic fairy tale. The couple had 4 children, and they seemed to live a life filled with purpose, duty, and happiness. Cristina became a working royal, managing foundations, representing Spain abroad, and supporting social causes. Iñaki too, once a national sports hero, was welcomed into the royal fold with admiration. But beneath the polished surface, cracks were beginning to show. In 2010, reports began surfacing about financial irregularities surrounding the Noose Institute, a nonprofit foundation led by Iñaki Urdangarin. What began as whispers soon turned into an avalanche of allegations. Urdangarin was accused of embezzling millions of euros in public funds through fraudulent contracts, siphoning money meant for sports events into private accounts. As the investigation deepened, it wasn't long before Cristina's name surfaced, first as a board member, then as a possible accomplice. The Spanish public, already disillusioned by austerity, corruption, and economic crisis, erupted with outrage. How could a princess, once seen as above reproach, be entangled in financial crime? The monarchy, once shielded by reverence, faced a devastating blow. Protesters gathered outside royal events with signs that read, "The royal family is stealing from the people." Trust in the House of Bourbon plummeted. In 2011, King Juan Carlos banished Iñaki Urdangarin from official royal events, a clear attempt to distance the crown from the scandal. But the damage was done. The once doting husband had not only betrayed the Spanish people, he had brought shame to his wife, the royal family, and the entire institution. By 2013, Cristina was formally named a suspect in the case. In an unprecedented move, a Spanish court summoned a royal princess to testify. Cameras swarmed as she entered. The courthouse, somber, eyes cast downward, wearing a dark suit that starkly contrasted the glittering gowns of her royal past. She became the first member of the Spanish royal family ever to face criminal charges in modern history. The trial was brutal. For months, the courtroom became the stage of a national reckoning. Prosecutors accused Cristina of knowingly allowing her husband to use her name and royal status to facilitate shady deals. Though she denied involvement, email trails and financial records linked her to misused funds and suspicious bank accounts. Every detail, down to family vacations paid for with stolen money, was dissected in the press. Yet even in the face of mounting evidence, Cristina stood by her husband. She claimed ignorance, loyalty, and innocence. Her defense was one of detachment. She signed documents, but didn't read them. She owned companies, but didn't run them. Her unwavering support for Iñaki shocked many. To critics, she was either naive or complicit. To supporters, She was a victim of love, a royal wife who trusted too deeply and fell too hard. In 2016, Cristina was acquitted of criminal charges, but the court ruled that she had benefited financially from her husband's crimes. She was ordered to pay a fine of nearly €265,000. Her husband, however, was found guilty and sentenced to over 6 years in prison. The verdict may have cleared her name legally, but not in the court of public opinion. For many Spaniards, Cristina's image was forever tarnished. The royal family took swift action. King Felipe VI, her younger brother who had ascended the throne in 2014 following their father's abdication, stripped Cristina of her title, Duchess of Palma de Mallorca. It was a cold, symbolic gesture, one that marked the final separation between the crown and its disgraced member. Cristina was exiled from royal duties, cut from public appearances, and quietly moved to Geneva with her children. The woman who once stood beside presidents and monarchs now lived in self-imposed exile, far from the spotlight. Years passed. Cristina faded from public view. Her husband served time behind bars. The royal family struggled to rebuild trust, focusing on a cleaner, more modern image under King Felipe and Queen Letizia. Yet whispers of Cristina's fall continued to haunt royal watchers. Could the monarchy truly be forgiven for its association with corruption? Could Cristina ever reclaim the dignity she once embodied? In a cruel twist, 2022 brought yet another blow. After more than 2 decades of marriage, Iñaki Urdangarin was photographed hand in hand with another woman. The images were splashed across Spanish tabloids, proof of betrayal not just in business, but in love. Days later, the couple confirmed their separation. Cristina, who had defended him in court, lost not only her title, her reputation, and her royal status, but now, her marriage too. Friends said she was devastated, yet dignified. Once again, the public watched as she shouldered pain with composure. Today, at 60 years old, Cristina lives a quiet, guarded life, far from the palaces of Madrid and the grandeur of Zarzuela. Her children are grown, her marriage is over, and her royal duties are a distant memory. She has returned to her roots as a private citizen, involved in low-profile charity work, preferring silence over spectacle. The story of Princess Cristina is not one of rebellion or recklessness. It is, rather, a haunting saga of misplaced trust, royal downfall, and the heavy cost of loyalty. She never sought power, nor plotted scandal. She was, in many ways, collateral damage in a narrative shaped by greed, betrayal, and an unforgiving public eye. She stood trial not just before judges, but before a nation that once adored her. Her name became a symbol of what happens when royalty forgets its duty, and when a woman's love blinds her to the storm brewing beneath her feet. In the end, the tragedy of Princess Cristina is less about crime and more about consequence. Her story forces us to confront uncomfortable truths: that titles offer no immunity, that the public's trust is fragile, and that even princesses can fall. Her life, once scripted like a fairy tale, became a cautionary tale. But perhaps in her quiet resilience, her decision to disappear rather than defend, lies a kind of grace that no crown can give or take away. After all the courts, headlines, and heartbreaks, Princess Cristina stands as a woman stripped of privilege but not of strength. And in her silence, she tells a story louder than any verdict: that survival, even in disgrace, is still a kind of royalty. The question of redemption for Princess Cristina lingers in the collective consciousness of Spain. As years pass and memories fade, the public slowly begins to reevaluate her role, not just in the corruption scandal but in the broader tapestry of modern Spanish royalty. Some view her with lingering disappointment, others with cautious sympathy. There is a growing awareness that Cristina's downfall was not born of malice, but of misplaced loyalty, emotional entanglement, and the complex burden of being born into a world where personal choice often bows to royal expectation. Public opinion, once harsh and unforgiving, has begun to soften in certain circles. Some journalists and royal commentators have revisited the trial transcripts, scrutinizing her statements and financial involvement. What they find is often more nuanced than the headlines once suggested. She was not the mastermind. She did not lead the operation. In fact, many now argue she was swept along by a man she loved, who leveraged her royal status to gain trust and influence in business circles. Her signature, it is believed by some, was given out of routine spousal trust, not calculated deceit. Still, Princess Cristina never asked for pity. She never offered a tearful public apology or sought to rebuild her image through press interviews or confessional memoirs. In a world where public figures often fight scandal with louder PR campaigns, Cristina chose the opposite path. She stepped into the shadows, letting time do what statements could not. She did not contest the loss of her Duchess title. She did not appeal for royal reinstatement. In Geneva, she embraced anonymity and built a new life with quiet dignity, far from flashing cameras and royal protocols. For her children, too, the fallout was deeply personal. Juan, Pablo, Miguel, and Irene grew up watching their family unravel under public scrutiny. Once poised for roles within the royal ecosystem, they now live relatively private lives, shielded by Cristina from the legacy of scandal. She prioritized their stability over her own visibility, ensuring they had the education and emotional distance to pursue lives untouched by the mistakes of the past. Insiders say she is a devoted mother, warm, protective, and focused on restoring a sense of normalcy in a family forever marked by the events of a decade ago. Behind closed doors, Cristina still maintains a relationship with the broader royal family. While stripped of formal titles, she remains a daughter, a sister, and an aunt. Her bond with King Felipe VI is reportedly complex but intact. Though his decision to revoke her title was seen as a public censure, many believe it was also an institutional necessity, a sacrifice to protect the monarchy's credibility. In private, Felipe is said to hold compassion for his sister's ordeal. Queen Sofia, Cristina's mother, has never publicly condemned her daughter, standing quietly by her side throughout the trial and after, appearing at occasional family events together. Yet one figure remained notably absent during these private moments, Iñaki Urdangarin. After serving part of his sentence in a women's prison repurposed for low-risk inmates, Urdangarin was granted a degree of freedom to work outside during the day, eventually moving to a halfway house. His reappearance in public life was far from triumphant. The photos of him walking hand in hand with a woman not his wife shattered any illusion of reconciliation. For Cristina, who had defended him against all odds, it was the ultimate betrayal. Their separation was quiet, lacking drama or fury, as if even her heartbreak had grown weary of making noise. In the public imagination, Cristina's story now serves as a morality tale for royals and commoners alike. She was a woman who tried to balance love and duty, trust and tradition, but ultimately lost everything when the foundation she built her life on crumbled beneath her. Her rise and fall are reminders that power and privilege do not exempt one from human vulnerability, and that in the end, the greatest scandal is not merely about money, but about what we are willing to sacrifice for those we trust. Her current presence in Spain is rare, but not non-existent. She attends private family ceremonies, quiet funerals, and the occasional royal birthday, always away from the spotlight. At 60, her face bears the lines of both joy and sorrow. Her smile is still there, though now more subdued, reflective. Those who encounter her describe her as kind, calm, and dignified, carrying herself not with the defiance of someone wronged, but the humility of someone who has endured. She is not seeking redemption. She is not campaigning for public sympathy. Her silence speaks louder than any press release. In the absence of royal titles, public events, and court headlines, Cristina has found something rarer than forgiveness: peace. And in that peace, she has quietly redefined what it means to survive disgrace. Yet even as she retreats from view, the media still watches. Spanish tabloids occasionally speculate about her relationships, her lifestyle in Switzerland, her travels to Barcelona or Madrid. Every public appearance is analyzed, every gesture dissected. But what they fail to understand is that Princess Cristina no longer belongs to that world. She is not seeking to return to the center stage. She has no interest in recapturing the magic of palace life. She is content being invisible to those who once clamored for her downfall. That in itself is perhaps the most surprising chapter in her story. Not the trial, not the sentence, not the exile, but the quiet acceptance of life beyond royalty. For Cristina, the fairy tale is over, but maybe that's not a tragedy. Maybe, for the first time in her life, she is finally free to write her own story, on her own terms, without the burden of crowns or the scrutiny of nations. And yet, in a world that thrives on comebacks, reinvention, and second chances, one can't help but wonder, is this truly the end of Princess Cristina's story, or simply the beginning of a quieter, more authentic chapter waiting to unfold.